Hello, and welcome to Cheers. That's one woman's opinion. I am your host, Carolyn Mills. Elvis here wanted to guest star briefly on today's episode because today is his fourth birthday, and he just wanted to let everybody see him. So today we'll be looking at Cheers Season 2, Episode 18, Snow Job. This episode, sorry, my wire got tangled. Let me detangle myself here. Okay, we're untangled. This episode first aired on February 9th, 1984. It was directed by James Burrows. It was written by David Engel. And again, David Engel passed away with his wife in the 9/11 attacks in 2001. Guest cast James Gallery as James Follery. He passed away, Gallery passed away in 2001 from an undisclosed cause, and Gary Gershaw as Tommy. Cheers is filmed in front of a live studio audience, was said by George Wendt in this episode. Our cold open. A postal worker comes in and Cliff gets on his case about his uniform. Um, I think when I see this, I think this poor guy, he just innocently comes in to deliver some mail and doesn't expect to have a uber obsessed postal worker there to attack him. He apologizes and Cliff says, I was green once too. Coach tells him, here's your beer, Cliff. The other postal worker asks him if he's Cliff Clavin. He explains that Cliff is a symbol in his branch where he works. Cliff is impressed until the man tells him, I messed up the other day and my boss told me to get my head out of my Clavin. And I thought about this phrase. I'm not sure if it's because of hearing it on here or if it really is the fact that the name Clavin does kind of sound like it could be used as an insult. Maybe it's because they have done so much. In fact, Cliff later on says to somebody else to get their head out of this Clavin, where everybody knows your name plays. Carla says that Anne Marie is being held back. Coach tells her that it's not, sorry, Coach tells her that it's just as bad to skip a grade. Cliff comes from the back. He asks where Norm is because he has a story. Carla tells him it's not her job to keep track of the walking beer keg. I love that description of Norm, and it's very fitting. She adds that no one cares about your stupid story. Coach is trying to break his record for the fewest glasses broken in one night. He says he cannot break more than 7 glasses before midnight. Cliff looks and says there are at least 4 feet of feathers behind the bar. Coach corrects him and tells him it's actually 6. Norm comes in with George Foley, who he met at unemployment. Cliff wants to tell Norm a joke. Norm blows him off to go play pool with George. Um, so this episode's actually interesting because on Paramount Plus, it was shown earlier. However, based on when it was filmed, sorry, based on when it first aired is when I showed it, which is in February. It shows a December on there. So I assume that's probably when it was filmed, and that's how they do is film order. Um, but I do it in aired order. But it's interesting, however, because Norm's at unemployment. He supposedly is now working for Sam as his accountant. He had that other lady, which he may have lost when he. Wait, did we get to that one yet? We didn't get to that yet. Did we get to that one yet? No, sorry, we didn't get to that episode yet. It's coming up, so I won't talk about that. Um, but anyway, he supposedly has Diane, for one. So he supposedly has some jobs happening now. How is he unemployed again? Well, we know Norm goes from unemployed to unemployed to employed all the time. But this one's interesting, but it may just be the reason why Paramount aired it earlier. It may have actually made more sense or something. Anyway, Diane is upset she has to work on George Washington's birthday. I mean, don't we all get upset when we have to work on a well, not a random president, the first president, but when we have to work on a president's birthday, I mean, I personally hate it when somebody makes me work on Abraham Lincoln's birthday, so I understand. Carla says that Sam won't be working because he always goes skiing every year at Washington's birthday. Diane tells her that he won't go this year since they're dating. Carla says he'll still go. And I thought, this is interesting. He does this every year, and yet we never hear about this other than this episode in the 11 years of the series. We only hear about one. True. And I also thought Washington's birthday is February 22nd. We're going to see in a later episode. I don't want to give a whole lot away, but in one of the Rebecca episodes, he has a date every year on Valentine's Day. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that if you're fans of the show. So does he rest up between? And he has to drive somewhere for that too. I don't think it was nearby. I don't remember where that was, but I want to say Vermont. But anyway, of course that's only mentioned once too. Sorry, my dog stinks. Not stinks. He had a bath, but how he got a potty. So I'll take it afterwards. I'm sure you all want to hear that. So back to the show. Sam comes in and says he found out that his uncle Nathan died yesterday. He says he has to go to Vermont for the funeral. Diane asks him where in Vermont, and he tells her Stowe. Now, we realize, of course, because Carla just told us what's going on, but Sam's not very smart with his lying skills because Diane will explain why later that this is an issue of this lie. But he says he's going to Stowe. And of course, that's where the ski resort is. But if he had half a brain in his head, he would have named any other city in Vermont so that it didn't look like he was going to where there's a ski resort. Then again, Sam may not know any other city in Vermont because he's not the brightest man in the world. Diane asks Sam if he was close to his uncle. Sam says he was, and Diane offers to go with him for support. Sam does not want her to go, and then he goes into his office. Diane asks Coach if she believes Sam about his uncle dying. Coach responds, "Of course, Diane. They wouldn't make funeral arrangements if he wasn't dead. I think they have a test for that." That line always kind of makes me laugh, the test line. Carla tells him to tell Diane the truth. There is no Uncle Nathan. Coach replies, "Right. Sam's accepted, so we all have to." Norman George returned from their pool game in the back. I really wish this character was not named George because he's hanging out with Norm. And every time I look at it, I think I'm accidentally referring to Norm as his actor's name, George Wendt, of course. So that would have been a lot easier if they did not give the guy the name of the actor who he was hanging out with. Cliff wants to tell Norm that the story. However, George says they have to get going. They are going to a hockey game. Sam is trying to leave. Diane asks him how long he and his aunt were married. He tells her that they were married 40 or 50 years. She asks him if he knows what the secret of a lasting relationship is. Sam says he doesn't, but he will think about it as he drives to Vermont. Diane tells him the secret is honesty. She tells him when people start lying to each other, it destroys the relationship. She kisses him goodbye and tells him to be careful because it's a ski weekend, and he leaves. And of course, we see here she's obviously putting that in his head, ski weekend. So she's hinting, and she does a great job with that. Carla says Diane is hanging by a fingernail. Diane tells her he'll be back before last call tonight. Coach laughs, and Carla thinks he doesn't believe Diane, but he explains he got feathers in his shoes. Some time has passed. Coach has removed the feathers from the floor behind the bar. He has broken 3 glasses, saying he has never broken 4 in 4 hours. He breaks more until they're down to 2. He tells Carlo that 2 scare him. Um, I thought this was a little bit uncharacteristic for Coach. He's not your cocky type. So the fact that he's just smashing glasses to prove that he can do it because he won't break that many. I didn't really like that part because Coach is not the cocky type. Half time he thinks he does things he's never done. Cliff comes from the back to get another drink. Carla says he's been moping all afternoon. He says he's not moping. He's just spending time with himself. He refers to himself as a lone wolf. Norm returns without George. Carla asks him about the game. He says the Bruins won 8-7 in overtime. And extra, here's a little known fact trivia for you. The 1983-1984 season is the first season that the Hockey League, what's that called? National Hockey League, NHL. This is the first season that they started using overtime in hockey games. You want to get down? No, I'm trying. Okay. Cliff asks him where George is. He refers to George as Rudy Kazuti. Norm says George ditched him during the game and asks Cliff if he wants to shoot pool. Cliff, still hurt, says, "Do I have time to get down on my knees and thank the very God I pray to that you selected me?" It's funny because Norm does not get the sarcasm at this point because he says to him, "Yeah, just hurry up." But then he tells Cliff that he's not second best. George comes in and tells Norm, "Let's go get a burger." Norm is ready to go until he hears Cliff whimper. Norm tells George he's going to stay at the bar. Cliff is ready to leave with George, but George brushes him off. Cliff tells Norm that he was only trying to get George's hopes up, and then the two of them go into the pool room. Coach says that they are out of olives. Is it me, or does this show like olives a lot? I know, well, I don't know much about alcohol, but from what I gather, olives is a popular thing in some drinks. But I know of at least this episode and two others where olives are mentioned, specifically, and not a different other type of ingredient. So they apparently have a thing for olives here. Carla tells him to ask Sam. Then she asks Diane where Sam is. Diane says that he's probably coming in right now. Carla goes over to the door as Sam walks in. Sam says he was 3 miles from his aunt's house. Then he realized someone must have told Diane about his ski weekends. And again, she's been there for at least a year. She would have already known about his ski weekends. So this shouldn't have been a surprise to her. And Sam should have said somebody told you, because he would have known from the previous February that he does this every winter on George Washington's birthday. He tells her that the weekend was part of his past and he doesn't need to fool around with other women. She says that she has known the truth the whole time because if he was lying, he would have made up a better excuse that could have been easily, that could not have easily been proven. All she has to do, however, is call the local papers in Vermont and have them check the local death notices. Sam nervously says, "Of course, everybody knows that." And we know, of course, Sam doesn't know that. He leaves again. Carl says he's gone. Diane says he'll be back within the hour. More time passes, and Coach is looking at a banana peel next to a broken glass on the floor. The others tell him they were really pulling for him. Carla tells Diane that she said Sam would be back before closing time, and Sam walks in, upset with Diane. He says she keeps saying little things to make him turn back. He adds that he knows she wouldn't call, and then says that she called. Now she knows there's no Uncle Nathan and no funeral, but Diane informs him she never called. So Sam, of course, confessed to nothing. Sam then tells her there is no Uncle Nathan, and the truth is he works for the government. Diane is upset at these lies, and Sam says that she's been playing games with him too. They fight, and Diane says he can go on the weekend and fool around with any woman he wants. Sam says he will. Diane says she might let a busboy at her market carry her bags. Those were in air quotes for those of you listening. These two have a very toxic relationship and really should have not been together anyway. But when I did the Fortune and Men's Weights episode, they had broken up, and now they're together. Well, we know it's the whole relationship is on again, off again. In fact, I believe they were one of, if not the first couple, to have that on again, off again, well done relationship in a sitcom series. So Sam leaves again. Coach realizes he forgot to ask about the olives. Carla says he'll be back in 10 minutes. Norm says 5. Diane says maybe even sooner. And Sam walks in again and says, a busboy. So I gave this episode 4 out of 5 beer nuts. The whole say it's one of those that was kind of repetitive, but this one was done better, I think, than ones I've complained about being too repetitive. And sorry, I was just moving around. Get down, honey. Don't get down. All right. Sorry, he wanted to get down. Um, this one I thought was done better, which is why I gave it 4 instead of the usual 3-ish that I do with these type episodes. Because each lie was different. Well, the lie was the same, but how he tried to cover it was different. So it was very well played, I thought. So, but it still wasn't a favorite, which is why it's 4 and not 5 out of 5. I had co-MVPs for this episode: John Ratzenberger and Rhea Perlman. Um, John Ratzenberger, originally I was going to do Rhea Perlman for MVP because I just loved her reactions to Diane, even even though Diane, and Sam were basically the main focus on this episode, and Norm was the B story, Norm and Cliff. But I loved her reactions to every time Sam would walk in. When she thought, okay, I finally got Diane, and then there was Sam again. So that's why I was giving her. But then as I was typing this up for the podcast, after I'd watch it, because I write them when I write the notes when I'm watching it. And then I type it up because trust me, y'all would never be able to read my writing if I had to do it this if you had to read it. I can't read my writing. So as I was typing it up, I was like, wow, yeah, John. Cliff did this, Cliff did that. And I was like, he did an awesome job in this episode. And his whimpering and the moping, and I thought he did a great job. So I had to give it to both of them. Best dressed I gave to Diane Chambers. Diane gets a lot of good clothes. I have to tell you, she has a good wardrobe. Grand Slam line is the first time Sam returns. Diane says he's probably coming in right now. Carl responds, then I should hurry right over there and greet him. Open the door for my boss on his return. She opens the door. Hello, Sam. Hi, Carla. On baseline this is from the cold opening between Carla and Coach. You skipped a grade, Coach? I skipped 4. High school, I think it was called. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't the cold opening. It was right at the beginning after the cold opening. Cold opening was with Cliff and the other mailman. Here's a little known fact. Cliff refers to George as Rudy Kazootie. There was a boy from a children's show in the 1950s called the Rudy Kazootie Club. The boy was a freckled faced boy, and his name was Rudy Kazootie. If you like this episode, please join our Facebook group at Cheers, that's One Woman's Opinion. And you can follow us on Instagram at Cheers One Woman's Opinion Podcast. And follow us on Twitter X at One Woman's Opinion. You can join the Reddit group thing at Cheers Rewatch Podcast. And you can email us at Cheers One Woman's Opinion Podcast at gmail.com. So on Monday, January 12th, there will be a bonus movie rewatch for Kirstie Alley, the anniversary of her birthday. She passed away sadly a couple years ago from colon cancer. But we'll be watching the movie Look Who's Talking, as that is the one that had the most votes. So that released sometime on Monday. And next Thursday, we'll be looking at season 2, episode 19, Coach Buries a Grudge. Also, we are almost finished with season 2, and I'll have my usual what's that called? Recap of the season that I do with guest star Matt Jer, another Cheers fan. We'll be doing that. But there will also be a trivia game for questions from season 2. If you are interested, please email me at cheers one woman's opinion podcast at gmail.com. And I will randomly be selecting 2 or 3, depending on how many people email, to be the guest. And I will let you know after the episode of the last episode of season 2. We'll be seeing you part 2. When I do that podcast, I'll also let you guys know who the winner is. So you need to have your entries in by then. I have about five left. The game will be held sometime in February, either the second or third week. And whoever is the first to correctly answer 10 trivia questions from season two will be getting a Cheers related prize. Um, which I'm not saying what it is, it's a surprise. And this is a new feature that I was hoping to do at the end of each season. And that's one woman's opinion.